Hi everyone, I'm Mario Bellini, the Spot Product Manager, and I'm here to talk to you about game-changing automation, how you can get started with agile mobile robots like Spot. Before I dive into the robotics, I want to take a step back and ask you to think about site data, because that's what this is really all about. How would you run your business differently if you had unlimited data about your site? If you could access remote sites from anywhere in the world? This is more important now during COVID than ever, where it's really hard to get the right people to the right site at the right time. As a robotics company, we thrive on models. Models are what allow us to make a robot like Spot walk through the world. And your business is no different. And models are only as good as the data that you put into them. People are too important, too infrequent, and too inconsistent to collect the data that your models need to make good decisions. And this is something that Spot can help you fix. These better models help increase your team's understanding about the site so that they can make better decisions. Your team can focus on better, higher value tasks rather than just carrying a camera around collecting data. All of this has the potential to disrupt your operations, to completely change the way that you run your business using this new unlimited stream of site data. The technology is finally ready for your business to have this transformation. There's portable sensors like handheld thermal cameras, survey-grade LiDAR. There's edge computers that can process this data in real time and react to it on the edge. There's next-generation networks like 5G and industrial Wi-Fi that can get this data up to your cloud systems. There's cloud systems that many of you are already using that are starved of the data they need to make business-critical decisions. And last, finally, a robot can go anywhere a person can on your site. Spot can carry the sensors you need, along with edge computers to process the data, connecting to your networks and getting your cloud systems the data they need. Over the last year, we've worked with hundreds of companies around the country in order to develop a process for deploying robots like Spot into the field. This process starts with an ROI workshop, asking about valuable applications of data and robotics in your business. Next, a series of iterative POCs help you to test the robot on real sites, make sure you're driving towards a real solution. A pilot lets you test this solution with operators, handing over the keys so that you can measure ROI and finally make an impact on your business. The ROI workshop asks a simple question: what's valuable? This is something you can do with your team with a whiteboard, breaking out direct and indirect ROI. The direct ROI is easy. Things like improved safety, getting operators out of harm's way, reduce travel to site, saving time and money. And last, time savings, having robots collect data so people can focus on more important tasks. Indirect ROI, harder to calculate up front, but much greater. This is the benefit that you get from unlimited site data. You could detect errors earlier, saving costly rework. Your stakeholders could be happier. The project owner has remote access to the site, can constantly be updated about what's going on, and is more likely to work with you again in the future. You can better leverage your team. They don't have to spend their Friday afternoons driving to the job site just to take spherical photos. All of the data Spot collects builds a shared understanding about as-built conditions so that you can reduce liability and potential litigation with subcontractors. All of this data has the potential to automate your workflows. You have a lot of the tools already. They're just starved of the data they need and the automation they need for your team to really leverage the results. Last, these integrations that you already own will work better. They'll get more frequent data, better formatted data, and this can help them leverage AI to make better decisions. To summarize, the ROI workshop's where you start to understand the problem. I come from a science background and I really push for writing down the value hypotheses so you can keep your team focused on the results. This is also an opportunity at the beginning of the process to get executive buy-in so that you can unlock the resources your team needs to succeed with Spot. These resources are a dedicated team with the right skills to integrate the sensors, to build the end-to-end application that can help Spot change your business. The budget for your team to both build with the actual sensors, but to take shortcuts and use off-the-shelf solutions. Access to site so you can test the robot in the field and work with operators to get their feedback to make a better end result. Deadlines, which can help keep your team focused and help marshal the resources your team needs to succeed. Last, visibility within the organization. Many of us work in silos, don't know what the other silo is doing, but executives can help you get that visibility and find new opportunities to leverage Spot. Now I want to talk to you about Swinerton. Swinerton's a construction company on the West Coast, and they reached out to us to automate their laser scanning with Spot. For those of you that aren't familiar, laser scanning is a really tedious process. It involves taking hundreds or thousands of laser scans, each of which could take up to 10 minutes. Once you have all of the data, that's just half the battle. The next step is stitching all of that data into a global point cloud that represents your site. Swinerton scanned their sites on average about 3 times per project, and with Spot, they were hoping to do this once a week. This would let them better leverage tools that they already have, like a Veer. At the beginning of the process, Swinerton did an ROI workshop. The direct ROI was easy. Spot would save a lot of time during scanning. But in addition to that, Spot knows where it is on site and could feed that data into the scanner to save processing time significantly. Next, for the indirect ROI, Swinerton could take advantage of the weekly scans to automate progress tracking. Instead of sending an auditor to the site in order to manually measure progress to approve payments for subcontractors, they could have Spot do this automatically. This helped them pay subcontractors a lot faster. Rather than it taking 90 days to get paid, they would get paid in a couple of weeks. This really helped their cash flow and allowed them to lower their bids, saving Swinerton money. An unexpected benefit of Spot is that they could have owners access sites remotely. This made the project owner a lot happier and made it more likely that they'll work with Swinerton in the future. The next step is to do iterative POCs, and this is your opportunity to test the viability of your application. It's the fastest way for you to learn. You can learn more in 30 minutes on site than you can in a couple of weeks at a whiteboard. It's also an important opportunity for you to get feedback from people on site. There's nothing like a walking robot to get people excited and talking about the solutions that they're looking for. By working iteratively, you can leverage quick wins, show continuous progress, and build towards a complete solution. The POCs break down into 4 key areas. The first is a mobility test, making sure Spot can navigate your site safely. Next, an autonomy test, making sure it can reliably navigate the site autonomously. A sensing test to make sure that you're collecting the data that you need. And finally, an application test to measure the end-to-end application and see if it's ready to hand over to operators. The mobility POC, pretty straightforward. But for some sites with unique mobility challenges, like this industrial site here with an open graded floor, it's important to get this out of the way first. The key question you should ask is, can Spot walk there? Think about the application you want to do on your site and drive the robot there. Make sure that it can navigate through the site and that it can safely avoid any obstacles that come up. Obstacles like extension cords, thin pipes, open gaps. You want to make sure that Spot can address this before you invest in the rest of the solution. Safety is important. Think about what hazards Spot could face, whether it's an open pit or a section of path without a railing. Last, hand the controller over to someone else and let them visualize what they would do with the robot and use their feedback to drive the direction of your application. Next, you want to test the autonomy on your site. Can Spot auto walk there? The tablet makes it very easy for you to record an autonomous route with Spot and replay it. And this is the best way to test whether there's enough features in the environment for Spot to localize. Built in, Spot has sensors that can detect about 2 meters away from the robot to help it navigate a space autonomously. However, really large sites can present a challenge, and so we've developed the Enhanced Autonomy package, which uses a LiDAR to dramatically increase the sensing range of the robot, up to about 50 or so meters. This makes it possible for Spot to navigate large open spaces and some outdoor spaces as well. The autonomy POC is when you learn about these navigation requirements and make sure you have the right hardware configuration to navigate your site appropriately. Important in autonomy is repeatability. You don't want to run just one mission, you want to run multiple. And you want to compare the data from mission to mission to make sure that Spot is navigating where it should. Hazards are even more important to address during autonomy because you don't always have control or supervision of the robot. It's important to make sure that Spot's autonomous path is free of hazards. Everyone on the site is aware that the robot's navigating autonomously and that you have communication to the robot so that you can stop it if you have to. Next, sensing. The photo on the right shows Spot doing a sensing test in a tunnel in Japan, using its PTZ camera to zoom in on the tunnel face and inspect for cracks. The data is the most important part of this process, and so the sensing POC is equally important. Can you collect the data that you need to unlock your application? Does Spot have the right field of view to get all of the data that's appropriate? Does it have the repeatability to get the same data every time during its autonomous mission? Is the metadata appropriate? What other data do you need to collect along with the image, whether it's location in a building, GPS coordinates, or gas sensor readings, in order for you to really have something that can unlock your algorithms? Last, how's the data quality? Is it good enough for your team to get the insights that they need? Last, test the full end-to-end application. On the right is an early prototype of Dr. Spot, an application that our team built in a sprint when Brigham and Women's Hospital reached out to us in March about using robotics to do COVID triage. We hacked together an iPad, a waterproof housing, and a spherical camera in order to see whether Spot could add value to the nurses and help them triage patients from a safe distance away. We learned that comms were much harder than we thought, and our assumption that we could just use the Wi-Fi network wasn't a good one. And it was great that we learned this early, rather than investing in the solution over the course of a month, only to deliver something that didn't work. It's important for you to get to site and make sure operators can use the thing that you're building. Make sure they can use it from beginning to end. Think about the whole process and make sure that it's complete so that people actually use it. It doesn't just sit there and gather dust. Ask operators what would improve it. Oftentimes, pieces of friction that seem trivial to people that are building an application really matter to operators that are using it. And the key question that should drive this is it ready to pilot? Are you ready to hand over the keys, walk away, and let someone use the robot for months? We've been working with BP to deploy Spot on their oil and gas sites, and they've gone through a really meticulous series of POC tests to make sure that Spot adds real value to their business. Oil and gas sites are sensitive installations, so BP wanted to be confident the Spot could navigate the site safely. They identified graded surfaces and open riser stairs as two key mobility challenges to test. So they went down to a mock site at Teaks in Texas to test Spot on these mobility obstacles. They drove it over all the grates that they would experience on site and up and down all of the stairs and stair geometries that they had at their facilities in order to understand whether it could navigate safely, and it could. Next, they were concerned about the open areas at their real sites, and so they found an open area on this mock site to test Spot's autonomy system. There, they found that Spot's 2-meter sensing radius with its built-in stereo cameras isn't enough for it to navigate autonomously at their sites. They needed to install the enhanced autonomy package LiDAR payload to increase the sensing radius. Confident that Spot could now navigate safely and autonomously on their sites, they attached a gas sensor and a survey-grade LiDAR in order to build an end-to-end application that they could test at their Whiting, Indiana facility. This test allowed them to do an operator round with Spot, collect gas readings throughout the site, detailed PTZ images, and to build a point cloud of the facility. We've built tools for you to do these iterative POCs right into the Spot product. The tablet makes it easy for you to do mobility POCs and for you to hand over control to operators to get their feedback. AutoWalk makes it easy for you to record autonomous missions to assess autonomy in your real environment. Actions and callbacks in AutoWalk make it easy for you to integrate sensors to collect the data that you need. And the ecosystem, gathered virtually today for the first time, makes it easy for you to test and build an end-to-end application to deliver real value for your business. Once you've gone through this series of POCs, it's time to pilot. This means building a full application, filling in all of the gaps, and leaving it with operators so that they could actually use it. You can't just leave it with them and leave. It's important to maintain contact and get feedback from the operators so that you can improve the product based on what they're actually doing with it. This is your opportunity to actually test value, to close the loop on your value hypotheses and measure ROI. Now I want to talk about Ford. Ford was interested in using Spot to do laser scanning of their factories. As we talked about with Swinerton, laser scanning is a really tedious process, and Ford is using it to understand the as-built conditions at their factories. Some of these facilities are decades old, and there's no updated drawings about where anything is. So by using laser scanning, they can build a digital twin, understand where everything is, and plan their next installations. Ford was interested in two key ROI metrics with the robot. Time, is it faster to scan than a person going around with a laser scanner and tripod? And access to the tight spaces in their manufacturing facility. It's very unwieldy to have a large tripod and a human operator wedged in between machines. What Ford found by building an integration with Spot and deploying it to operators to actually use it in their facility is that Spot is 50% faster than a human operator, and it can get into these tight spaces that a person can't. To recap, the process for deploying robots like Spot into your business start with an ROI workshop where you understand what real valuable applications you can build with the robot. Next, a series of iterative POCs allow you to make continuous progress as you learn about these applications and build towards a full end-to-end solution. The application pilot delivers this solution to operators and measures ROI. Finally, you can scale within your organization and make real impact. We've built tools in the system to make this process easier. The Spot SDK, AutoWalk with its callbacks and actions, and the ecosystem today make it easy for you to conduct your POCs and get something to pilot. The ecosystem and the deployment solutions we're highlighting at the conference today will make it easy for you to scale out of pilot and make a real impact at your business. Thanks for listening. I'm excited to see what you do with Spot. Stay tuned to hear from some customers about the applications that they're building.